Hey everyone out there in YouTube land, Dan here from Geekcast Radio, the Comic Concierge, as I continue my look at all the different Marvel Fresh Start books. Today, I'm actually going to be talking about Venom #1, the relaunch of Venom with new writer Donny Cates and artist Brian Stegman. Donny Cates is like Marvel's new big thing. He kind of launched himself or really hit a new level with God Country last year, came into Marvel, started writing Thanos, and that was a huge hit, and Doctor Strange, and now he is taking over Venom that recently became Eddie Brock not too long ago. And again, as I'm looking at these books, I'm looking at two key things. One, is it good? Is the quality and what you would want in a comic? And two, is it in fact actually a fresh start? Does this feel like a good point for someone to come in and feel like, okay, this is Marvel getting the character back to what it was, and a good place to kind of move forward, and instead of just being kind of a rehash or a reshuffling of things where sometimes we had it with Marvel, where it's a fresh start, new #1, but it's really just continuing everything else that came before. And with this being a new creative team, it does feel like a fresh start. This, in a way, too, is rewriting or retconning some of Venom's history. We're learning or asking, okay, who was Venom? What was a symbiote before Spider-Man found it in Secret Wars? He got this costume. Where did it come from? And on the very first page, we get a hint that, if you can kind of see that, it may be a lot older than we realize, because that seems to be connected to, I think this is around the time of Beowulf, and there seems to be a symbiote that is attacking these Viking-like characters. And we've seen elements of this. I think it was in Guardian of the Galaxy and Venom Space Knight. Venom actually, it was actually Flash Thompson instead of Eddie Brock. We went to the Venom planet where there are other symbiotes. So there's been some adjusting to what the symbiote is, knowing that there are more out there in the world. And some people I know that I don't know how I truly feel about that, like saying there was the secret history this entire time. It's I get the idea, and I think there's something to move here, but it gets a little bit tricky, because does a character get left behind as you're trying to just put in this plot that didn't exist there before? I trust Donny Cates. I've enjoying everything he's doing, and I do feel like in this case he is looking at the character of Eddie Brock as much as he is adding in these different historical elements of the character of Venom. He's asking a question of, like, well, who is Eddie Brock, that he hasn't asked these questions himself? Who is Eddie Brock that he doesn't even really know who his Venom symbiote is or what it was before him? Who is Eddie Brock that he is comfortable enough to actually wear the symbiote, where most people are scared about it or more fearful of it, where he doesn't have that fear? He came to it much, much sooner. What made Eddie Brock, who made Eddie Brock, and what made Eddie Brock into what he is today? We get a little bit of that. And I also gotta say that I did really enjoy Ryan Stegman's art. He's been a great writer for artist for some time, and this is the first time he's used an actual inker, and which is very uncommon in today's world of comics. Most artists have ink themselves, especially those that do it digitally. But I think it really paid dividends. I think it really allowed him to really focus, and I felt like it entered a new layer. And I'm trying to, for example, this to me was like, wow, that looks great. I mean, just obviously the coloring is a little bit more muddier here than I expect for a Stegman book, but I think it works. It sets the tone right away. That webbing is fantastic. So much detail there. So I think he maybe just having that inker, he's able to focus in on some more of the details. He frees them up, gives them some more time. Even in this page, this panel right here, that's fantastic storytelling right there with the Eddie Brock looking into the mirror. It gives you so much about the character of Eddie Brock. So yeah, the splash pages are there, but it seems like he, as a storyteller, is upping his game as well. And I'm not a gigantic Venom fan. I think I like him when he pops up in other books, or we see him kind of show up in like a Spider-Man book here and there. I've never really stayed consistent with a Venom series all that much. So I come in this as more of a novice here and there. I did like Venom Space Knight when it was out a few years ago, just because of kind of the novelty of it. And I tend to like Flash Thompson more than Eddie Brock as a character. But I do feel like we're getting some more here. And Eddie Brock's very broken. The symbiote is having these nightmares. And again, there is this history here. We have a new character that shows up that seems to know a whole much more about the symbiotes and their relationship to the government, similar to the program that made Agent Venom. So there's a lot here to uncover. And so I think this did a good job at just setting the stage of what is this first arc going to be looking into. And it was a really strong issue in that sense. And again, this team of Ryan Stegman and Donny Cates is really strong. I think they really complement each other quite well. Donny Cates as a writer, I think, is a very visual driven writer. He was a former artist, and he's worked with like Jeff Shaw. His work with Jeff Shaw is very evident of that. He, I think, gives Jeff Shaw room to tell the story, and I think that's the case here. It feels very action heavy. And he really uses the pages, lets the artist go out. There's not a lot of conversation here and there. Even when there is, it's visually interesting. Like the conversation between this new figure that shows up and Eddie Brock. There's a look to it where even if he's taking the time having a conversation, throwing a lot of exposition at us, it doesn't feel too exposition-y for the most part. I do. My only concern is where exactly is this going? Does the idea of there being the secret program all along, sometimes that can get somewhat tiresome. As I mentioned, I do worry about that anytime that it's like, trying to throw in a bunch of hidden history that hasn't been there, but suddenly now it's coming to the forefront. Again, it does work as a fresh start because you're literally rewriting the book of what we expect with that character. So it's at least living up to its name. But as I mentioned, the thing is, you spend so much time on that, and then in a year or two, someone else takes it over and rewrites it again, and then everything that this book was writing towards goes away. And instead of just giving us a story, telling us who Eddie Brock is, my hope is that it finds a good balance, and it allows that past to inform us who Eddie Brock is now. And I think he's been able to at least hint at that with this first issue. And there are some incredible imagery in this that I don't want to give away. So I talked about the Avengers book, and I was giving it a lot of praise. And Venom is another one. I think Marvel's, I don't know if they're programming like that, looking at our books and seeing which ones are the best so far, and let's put those up front, because I thought both of these were exactly what I wanted, and I might actually be continuing reading a Venom book, which I've never really done before, in large part due to the creators that behind it. So I'd be interested to hear those that did read Venom. What are your thoughts? Those are huge Venom fans. Do you think this did the character justice? Again, does this actually feel like a fresh start? If so, sign out in the comments below. And if you want, subscribe, do all that stuff, they'll be able to watch the YouTube video before, I'm assuming. So if not, there's much better videos out there than me, but I appreciate you taking the time. Until next time, remember, the comics are for everyone. The key is finding the right one.